and call it home. It's just a couple blocks off of the main part of downtown. And all of a sudden that's rolling and becoming the Warehouse Arts District. And importantly, what we do there, our mission has been a big part of that. You know, we're getting the infill with restaurants, and all of a sudden developers are getting interested in having loft spaces, and we know what can happen to parts of town when that starts to happen as well. Within 5 years, all of a sudden the artists are gone, but we're taking very important steps as well to see what we can do about really keeping it a place, you know, it's place making. It's where things are made. You know, and Albuquerque is wonderfully notorious for a place where things get done.
We're similar as well in that vein, working with non-arts partners as well as other arts collaborators in the community. Because Los Angeles, of course, has many theaters. Actually, technically, there's more small theater companies in Los Angeles than there are in New York City.
Tell the movie business that.
Exactly. But in the Watts community, we are actually the only one out there, and a lot of that culture has not been able to connect, even though the people of Watts are very culturally rich. And so what we've done is we've reached out to the politicians, and there's actually a Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas, who runs the 2nd District, which is our district area, and he has an empowerment congress. And we were actually able to serve on the Arts and Culture Committee, which was just formed as part of that empowerment congress. So it's about working with the politicians and working with other community leaders to help bring arts to our community.
And are you also in the forefront of the Latino and African American community working together?
Yes, and they work together all the time. And they work together really well. One of our partners is the Watts Century Latino Organization, which is one of the biggest nonprofits in Watts. But there has been a shift. About 20 years ago, Watts was predominantly African American community, and it has been becoming very rapidly predominantly Latino community. And the gangs, and there's a lot of crime that has been plaguing that community. And so there's a lot of what you see in the media will be the conflict between the Latino and African American communities. But what we like to focus on is how they work together and how they produce beautiful work and beautiful communities.
And it also sounds like Atlanta, which is a very varied community, but that you are sort of cut across a lot of sections.
We do, and again, it depends on sort of what our programming is. You asked a new works question, and a couple of years ago we did a project called Women in War, and we interviewed almost 50 women whose lives have been impacted by war, all in the Atlanta area, and we built a piece around those stories. And what we did was partner with the refugee community, which is huge there. So we had Somali women and Sudanese women and women who had been soldiers in Iraq, American soldiers in Iraq. I mean, just an incredible, and these 2 twin women who had been missionaries in the Congo. And so, so we really reached into a number of communities through that. And we, in a similar way as you guys, were doing a lot of these partnerships that we try to bring forward over time, because you don't want to just sort of get together with a community and then never go back to them. So we've done a number of projects that have intersected with the veteran community and with the military community and with the juvenile detention facilities and that whole community. So we have a number of relationships with different groups that we're continuing to nurture and we really think about that as we pick our plays. What's the next part of that conversation that we can have so that we're continuing to, to engage in the conversation and see what we can do to help change.
And also, how about within the artistic community of Atlanta?
We have, we believe a lot in nurturing new artists who are coming up into the community. So we have a very strong intern program. They tend to be young women, although we have a really great young male intern right now who's strong and brave to be with us. He's okay with a lot of estrogen in the room, But so we really try to bring up new artists and teach them in a very positive way. We try to have very little chaos and really respect and nurture all of the artists and the people that we work with. And Atlanta's a very sort of free market in terms of artists because it's a right-to-work state in Georgia. So the whole equity, non-equity, professional, non-professional dynamic is very different. So we have a tremendous group of artists, and it's a very collaborative community. All the theaters work really well together.
And Seema, San Diego has an extraordinary collection of artistic institutions. How do you fit in with them well?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're San Diego's best well known for the major LORT theaters in our region, the Old Globe and La Jolla Playhouse, and of course San Diego Rep. And we all do play well together. La Jolla Playhouse started a program a few years ago called their Resident Theater Company program, and Mo'olelo was the inaugural resident theater company at La Jolla Playhouse, where essentially they give a residency for a year long to a company that had been previously nomadic, or gypsy, as we would like to say. And then we've also produced work at Mo'olelo that has then gone on to the stage at the Old Globe. In 2006, we did a play called Since Africa, working with the refugee communities, and it did really well. It sold out before we opened, and it got the attention of folks at the Old Globe. They decided to produce it in 2009 and then hired me to direct it there. So there's a lot of learning across the scope and the ecology of theaters in San Diego.
Theater is nothing if not collaborative. Anyway, thank you guys. This is great.
Thank you very much.
Back to talk a little more in a moment. From theater companies that are ensemble-based, creating their own works. Samantha Schmitz from Bunport Theater Company in Denver, Colorado.
Our greatest challenge is trying to thrive in Denver, trying to be relevant and vital in our community, and do work that challenges our audience and ourselves.
Dito Van Ragersburg from Pig Iron Theater Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
I toast both the fleet of footness of an actor who has to get it right the first time, and the desire, the ability to go deep and think about profound things and take that moment, that Hawaiian moment, I forget what it's called. Okina. The okina that is so important that the theater allows us to do.
And Thomas Graves of Rude Mechanicals, located in Austin, Texas.
We're lucky to be in Austin and have an audience that wants to participate in the creation of a play, that knows it isn't finished until they show up and bring their own associations and dreams to the piece. An audience that holds us accountable with honesty, but never dismissiveness.
Welcome, everyone. I think this would be a great opportunity to explain a little bit about your theater company, since I think a lot of people who watch these programs may not know each one of your companies. So ladies first, Sam, tell us about Bunport.
Bunport is an ensemble-based company in Denver, Colorado, and we work collaboratively from conception to production. There are 6 collaborators in our main company, and we, from idea to show, the 6 of us work together, fighting it out to figure out what we will produce and put on stage for our audiences to see.
And what kinds of shows do you do?
We do a lot of adaptations of works and biographies. The show that we have coming up is a remount called Kafka on Ice, and it is a retelling, a kind of dreamy retelling of Franz Kafka's life, using the metamorphosis as a base story, performed on synthetic ice in our warehouse. So we have a theater that we have transformed into, or a warehouse that we transformed into a black box theater, and we put some plastic ice together and actually ice skate on it with some giant cockroaches and some telling of Kafka's life.
So truth in advertising.
Exactly. Kafka on ice. We didn't want to, we're not lying, on ice.
And Denver is a fairly enlightened theater town. How do you fit into the Denver scene?
Denver is a great theater town. There are not a ton of people doing all original works in Denver, so we fill that niche. We're not as experimental as some other theaters, so we are original, but we're not like what people would call experimental theater. So you can come and see a work of fiction turned into a play, or a biography turned into a play.
Great. Now Thomas, Rude Mechanicals, Austin, Texas. I don't know where to begin. Explain what Rude Mechanicals is all about and why Texas is home to it.
Yes, we have a lot in common with Bunport. We are a theater collective. We've been around for 15 years. We have 6 co-producing artistic directors and create new works for the stage collaboratively. So we devise them from scratch. And we present about 1 show a year. Austin, Texas is a great home for us. There's a lot of new work being made in Austin, so we feel right at home there.
I did notice that one of the shows that you had done was a revival of the Dionysus in '69, a rather shocking show in its time. How did Austin take to that?
We did Dionysus in '69 last December, which is a recreation of the performance group's production in 1968. It was very well received by Austin audiences. There is a lot of nudity in the show and a lot of audience participation, sometimes happening at the same time. And Austin totally, jumped right in and went along with it, and it was a lot of fun.
And Austin, it is a college town, University of Texas, right? Is that part of why you get away with nudity, you think? Or?
Austin is yes, it's a college town. It's a very affordable town, so it was a great town to start a theater company in because it allowed us to, to make work and make a living doing it. And it's also a music town, so people understand the idea of getting together. A lot of people have bands, so the idea of coming together and everybody, saying, oh, I'm going to write this song, or, oh, let's try this thing. So the idea of collaboratively devising something isn't new to Austin, and they really like weird stuff, and so our stuff goes over pretty well.
And how did you all start?
I was not there at the inception. The Rude Mecks grew out of a group of people that went to a summer program doing Shakespeare. It's called Shakespeare at Winedale. And they go out into the country and put on Shakespeare plays. And so there were several company members started out there and decided to move to New York. And it was just, they couldn't make a living here. It was too hard. So they moved back to Austin and started the Rude Mecks.
That's great. Dito, tell us about Pig Iron in Philadelphia.
Pig Iron. Well, we are also about 15 years old. We came out of college all together. We all went to Swarthmore College, and we also took a detour to New York. Found it a little bit too difficult financially, and then around the time that Philadelphia Live Arts and Fringe Festival came up. So it's a great festival that happens every September in our city. We all decided to move to Philadelphia. And it was kind of a beautiful harmonic convergence of things that we wanted to have happen, unusual approaches to theater, unusual audience performer relationships, sort of theater that moves around the space and stuff. That the festival really encouraged. We were also really interested in, so that was kind of a beautiful takeoff. And Philadelphia also has a great number of foundations that support theater, so we've been lucky.
Do you have a home, or do you move around?
We used to just have an office, and just this year we started a school called the Pig Iron Pig Iron School for Advanced Performance Training, or APT, and that allowed us to get a space that is mainly the big studio classroom of the school, but now we can also rehearse there. We rehearsed our first play ever in our own home this summer, and the offices are just upstairs on the second floor.
And because Philadelphia does have a fair amount of arts, music, and theater, how did you find an audience?
I think a big part of it was this connection with the festival and finding audiences that were a little bit more daring. And now we have a sort of proven track record, so people come to see our stuff. And we're not about quantity. We can't offer like 8 shows a year, but we can offer a new show every year that's completely from scratch, and we can offer shows from our repertoire that we can revive. So I think people like the idea of seeing something kind of that feels handmade or hand-stitched or touched by human hands.
I did notice Chekhov Lizard Brain, a show that was new to me. What's that about? Is that one of your hits?
This will maybe explain our process. Dan Rothenberg, who's one of the other artistic, we have 3 artistic directors. He was reading a book by Temple Grandin called Animals in Translation. And she is a very interesting woman. She's autistic, but she's high functioning autistic to the point where she could actually write a book. and she wrote this book about how she feels as an autistic person more connected to animals, and that she sort of has these theories about how her brain structure as an autistic person relates better to an animal's, especially a mammal like a cow. And she went on to design a lot of the slaughterhouses, actually, but humane slaughterhouses in the United States. So that's on one side. Right. And then I was really interested in working on Chekhov, just as a challenge for us as a company.